Understanding the legacy of racism in America is essential to building an anti-racist America.
The book Stamped covers all topics including racism, slavery, anti-racism, and how you can help fix it. The book starts off with the world's first racist, Gomez Ernest de Zurara. He basically said in a book called The Chronicles of the Discovery and Conquest of Guinea that basically said that Africans were savages, and he glorified Prince Henry, their captor. Years later, we come across John Cotton and Richard Mather, who sailed to America and created the first university in America, Harvard University. According to them, Puritans, which they were Puritans, they said Puritans were better than Native Americans, Anglican, English people back then, and everyone else who weren't Puritan, especially Africans, because of their beliefs, which go back to the theories, which were the climate theory and the curse theory, because their teacher was Aristotle, the creator of the climate theory. Even further down the line, we meet Thomas Jefferson. In the book, he stated as a contradictor because he was part of pro-slavery and anti-slavery. He owned slaves but wanted to end slavery. While he was warring with Britain, he wrote the Declaration of Independence that said that enslaving Africans was good as an economical state of mind, but later he said that enslaving people as a whole was bad, which of course made him a contradictor. Now, he also wrote a book called Notes on the State of Virginia, which basically shared his own opinions on enslaving Africans. He said that they would never be good and that they were always inferior, and that he also bred them.
And how racism started, as an informist, I must tell you, but how racism started is by a man named Zurara. It started by him writing a book called The Chronological of the Discovery and Conquest of Guinea. It basically talked about how Portuguese bringing slaves from their home, and talked about how humans can be owned like a pair of sneakers of some sort.
As I read the book Stamped, I came across 3 different terms: a segregationist, assimilationist, and an anti-racist. The segregationist is someone who wants people separated based off race, and assimilationist is someone who will only like you if you look like them or you act like them. An anti-racist is a person who doesn't care about how you look, your race, or your religious beliefs.
Going back to that earlier class, how do you feel about the Three-Fifths Compromise?
The Three-Fifths Compromise is pretty weird. It says that 5 slaves would be counted as 3 people. Why is that?
The Three-Fifths Compromise was the result of the Great Compromise. The Great Compromise was the compromise that created the House, the Senate, and said that the amount of representatives each state got depended on the amount of people that were in the state.
So you're trying to say that they were voting for the senators and the representatives because there was too much senators and too much representatives, so they needed to vote to figure out how much senators and representatives were, but they didn't know how to count for slaves?
Exactly. So basically, the South, they had more people than the North. And the North, they didn't like that because that meant the South had more power than them. So they created a compromise between them that said 5 slaves counted as 3 people because they didn't want to count them.
The compromise was about how they were voting, and they needed to they needed to vote for the House of Representatives and the president and governors.
Not exactly. Well, since the South had more people, they gained more representatives and they have their ideas shut out for more, which meant they had more votes. So basically, the North didn't like that, and they created a compromise between the South and them that 5 slaves counted as 3 people because they didn't know how to count slaves.
How can you become an anti-racist?
I can become an anti-racist by not putting stereotypes on others
Treating others how you would want to be treated.
and respecting who they are as a person.
Showing people that I am not mean and I am a kind person.
Even though their cultures, religions, looks, and ethnicity may be different than mine.
Treating others equally.
By treating other people how I treat myself.
And 3, respecting others' ideas.
And not judging them based off their appearance.
Because we're not all the same.